Alright, so move on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my thoughts on the David Benavidez versus David Morrell fight officially being announced next in this sport of boxing. So, it's a big time fight that opened up the calendar year 2025. The PBC will be presenting to us this big fight that will be taking place February 1st in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. You will be seeing a huge light heavyweight fight with David Benavidez defending his light heavyweight interim WBC title against David Morrell February 1st at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. This is going to be the PBC's first pay-per-view card of the calendar year 2025. So, this is something that a lot of boxing fans should be proud of, that we were getting a big 50-50 fight that opened up the calendar year 2025 between David Benavidez and David Morrell at the light heavyweight division. Both of these fighters moved up to the light heavyweight division in their aspirations to be a world champion or possibly be an undisputed champion. Canelo Alvarez ducked David Benavidez several times at the super middleweight division and wanted no parts of David Morrell at all. So both of these fighters have moved up. They're going on their own path to being a world champion, being undisputed. This is going to be a 50-50 fight. You have the Mexican monster, David Benavidez, who is growing on me and being one of my favorite fighters in the sport of boxing because he's a throwback fighter. He doesn't give a damn who gets in the ring with him. He wants to fight the best of the best and prove why he's a future world champion and possibly an undisputed champion. David Morrell is a very dangerous southpaw fighter that lacks experience, but is a very dangerous fighter. Has a lot of knockouts, 9 knockout victories. He is 11-0. So I think this is going to be a fun 50-50 fight between two fighters that can end the fight of a blink of an eye because they both possess a lot of power. They both are very skillful. This should be a big 50-50 fight. And possibly the winner of this fight, depending on what happens at this light heavyweight division, if we get an Arthur Beterbiev and a Dimitri Bivol rematch, we could possibly see the winner of this fight February 1st get in line in the end of 2025 for a possible undisputed light heavyweight championship fight. So this fight between David Benavidez and David Morrell is everything you want. This is a 50-50 fight. The best of the best fighting each other. And the winner could have some huge there could be some huge ramifications for the winner of this fight to earn a huge undisputed championship fight. And I have to give the PBC credit because this is a fight that has been brewing in the pot for a while. The build-up should be fun. I mean, you see at the press conference this week how David Benavidez and David Morrell were chopping at the bit with each other, going back and forth, basically claiming that the other is going to finish the other. David Benavidez said that he wants David Morrell to have a broken jaw, a broken mouth by the time he's done with him. David Morrell believes it could be vice versa. So this is going to be a fun fight between these two respective light heavyweight fighters. Definitely something the PBC should be proud of to open up the 2025 year off with a bang. And the undercard is pretty badass too. I mean, so there's some pretty good fights here on this undercard because you'll be seeing Brandon Figueroa versus Stephen Fulton, the rematch, part 2, and the co-main event. Now, honestly, I tell the truth when I talk about things like this when I'm on the podcast with the guys, the Combat Series. I had no idea that Brandon Figueroa was elevated to become the new WBC featherweight champion because former WBC featherweight champion Ray Vargas has now been put in champions in recess, meaning he is no longer the full-time world champion at this featherweight division. So now Brandon Figueroa, who won the interim WBC title earlier in the calendar year 2024, has now been elevated to the full-time featherweight champion in the sport of boxing. So that even puts more fire and more things on the line for pride and a title fight between these two respective fighters. So now you have a 50-50 fight once again between them. Now, I think the rematch between Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton, I think it's anybody's fight. But the first fight ended in controversy because you had Stephen Fulton winning that fight by majority decision. A lot of people thought that Brandon Figueroa won the first fight. Now, the story heading into this fight is Stephen Fulton the same fighter because if you look at what happened in the summer of 2023, he got smoked by Naoya Inoue when he went over to Japan to fight him, and he got knocked out and really lost 7 out of the 8 rounds out of that fight. Then you turn around to what he did in the fall. He was on the Canelo Alvarez Edgar Berlanga undercard and looked pretty ordinary in that fight and got dropped at the midway point of that fight, barely escaped with a split decision victory on that undercard. So you have a fighter in Brandon Figueroa who's gotten better since that first fight. You have Stephen Fulton who's starting to regress after the Inoue Inoue fight. I don't know what's going to happen, but this could be a fun fight for the in the co-main event slot of the David Benavidez and David Morrell undercard for the WBC title at the featherweight division. And also, this card does have some other guys that the PPC has been building up for the last few years. You have Isaac Cruz versus Angel Ferrero. Now, Isaac Cruz, I'm surprised he's not going after a rematch, because during the summer, when he was on the Terrence Crawford and Israel Madrimov card, he did lose his super lightweight WBA title against Jose Valenzuela. So he lost that title earlier in the year, and I'm surprised he's not cashing in on a rematch opportunity, because I think the second fight could be better for him if he makes some adjustments defensively against Jose Valenzuela. So I'm surprised that he didn't go after that. But I think Isaac Cruz got to play his cards right, because if he loses this fight against Angel Ferrero, that's not going to be a good look for him. Angel Ferrero is a dangerous fighter. It's not going to be an easy fight. It's not going to be a cakewalk for Pitbull Cruz. He's an aggressive Mexican fighter that likes to fight coming forward and create pressures. He has 17 victories come away of knockout. So both of these fighters, Isaac Cruz and Angel Ferrero, likes to fight coming forward. They like to apply the pressure in the boxing ring. And there could be a lot of bombs exchanged in that fight. Could be a fun 50-50 fight with somebody possibly being knocked out in that fight. So it's been an up and down year for Isaac Cruz. I'm looking forward to seeing how his year starts off for the calendar year 2025, if he possibly wants to have the aspirations of being a world champion once again in the sport of boxing. But those are my thoughts on the David Benavidez versus David Morrell fight card.